Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this segment of One-on-One. I'm Martin Falls. So when we come back from the break, we are going to have the Consul Chair for Terrebonne Parish, Mr. John Amedee. He's going to tell us how he ascended into that rank. We'll talk about his life, what makes him tick. It's all next. Very important show. Don't go away. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. And welcome to this episode of One-on-One. I'm Martin Falls. Very pleased to have in our studio today Mr. John Amedee. He is the chairman of the Terrebonne Parish Council. And John, always good to see you.
Well, Martin, thank you for having me. Yeah. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy sitting and talking with you about all things Terrebonne Parish.
I haven't known you my whole life, but what I know about you, what I've learned about you, is I think you will bring a calming effect to politics. Now, you're very straightforward. You do have your mind made up on certain things, but remember, I've been covering council meetings for 40-something years, so I've seen the different personalities. But you come across with a different personality, and we'll get into all that. But I want to go way back to the earliest years you can remember. Where were you born?
Well, Martin, I was born in the big old village of Napoleonville. And for those that are watching that are familiar with that time, it was in 1963, and pretty much everybody was delivered by Dr. Cox on the Canal Road. And we lived there until I was about 7 years old. My dad worked for United Gas Pipeline Company, and I can remember, it was a different time. Even as a 5, 6-year-old child, and of course Napoleonville is not that big. It's about as big as a subdivision. I grew up here in Houma, Oakshire. Yeah. But we would run around and do all the things that we do and never had a worry in the world. As long as you're in before dark, you were good. Yeah. And, my dad got a transfer in 1970. He worked for United Gas Pipeline Company, and that's when we moved to Houma. They bought a new home in Oakshire subdivision, and that was my stomping ground growing up.
My dad was born in Napoleonville, and when he came to Houma, it was like the big city.
It was.
Very rural in Napoleonville, but you're right. The grassroots were simple, but the work ethic was strong.
Yeah, we lived in Napoleonville. We lived right next to the cane field, which it was also right next to the old football stadium. We were the last house on the street, and the former there was a Mr. Goday, and he'd always plow several rows for the community to go out and plant. So we didn't have a really big yard to grow a garden, but he provided it for us, and I can still remember going out there and picking those green beans and sitting there snapping them. And everybody just got together, did it, and shared it amongst everybody in the group, and it was good times, I tell you.
But be honest, because I had to do it on my side. When we got to our grandparents, they had the big bowls waiting for us. I hated it.
It's like, work, man, I want to be out there playing.
Right. Well, especially kids that had a lot of energy. The worst thing they could do is hand you a bowl, and you got to shuck the peas and do all this. But I guess it was part of life,
Right, it was part of life. That's exactly.
So tell me about your upbringing. Was it a strict background, or what was it like?
We grew up in Oakshire for most of my life, and being in the subdivision, parents were okay with what was going on. I mean, we played in the pasture, we played in the woods, and we knew our parents' whistle. So if we were out in the woods and we heard that whistle, it was like, oh, that's your dad. And you come out and see what's up. Of course, being in the subdivision, we had many friends growing up in Oakshire, and have many of them still to today. But it was good, did the normal things that kids do. TPR baseball growing up. That's the only sports that I did growing up. At the time, the only football was Hark. And my brother played Hark football, but just wasn't interested in it. I liked baseball, played shortstop. Sometimes center field. Once I moved on from Oakshire to Evergreen, I decided that I didn't want to do sports, just wasn't interesting me, so I tried out for band and choir. was accepted to both and had to pick one. So I ended up picking choir. So I know you're always trying to get me to sing, but once I got out of high school, I didn't do much singing, so I'd have to really get my voice in shape.
One day we're going to get you to sing, yeah. And so you went to Bourgeois.
My first year, we platooned with Broadmoor while Oakshire was being built.
Okay.
Second year, it was third grade, went to Oakshire, went all through Oakshire, and then through Evergreen, and then went to Bourgeois.
Yeah.
So I graduated Bourgeois in 1981.
Was Luther Fletcher there at the time?
He was.
The boss?
The boss hog. He came in and did his thing, and Mr. Fletcher's been a great guy in the community and with the school. He had a lot of fun with the students. He played up the whole boss hog thing. And really motivated the kids.
And he still had a picture of a poster of Nutriman, my movie, in the hall. I grew up across the street.
All right.
Mr. Luther and Miss Connie were dear friends of my parents. So I couldn't get away with anything if my parents were diverted on something else and I snuck out the window or whatever. Luther made a phone call.
Yeah.
And Daddy always said, we had an agreement. Your kids sneak out, I'll call you. My kids sneak out, you call me.
And you know, Martin, it's the same way where we were growing up in Oakshire. If somebody's parents saw you doing something you shouldn't do, first of all, they had the right to spank you and correct you.
Yes.
Then when you got home, you got it again. And it was the same way with school. If Daddy found out that we got a spanking at school, we got it because, you know, he's like, y'all need to do the right thing. And that's not it.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
If anybody touches anybody's kid today,
oh yeah,
I hate to think about it.
Right, they're coming after you.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess we had more sense of community back then. With technology, I guess today times are fast-paced and people have different views as they evolve through life. But I can tell you, if I were raising kids today, it'd be the same rule that I grew up under because I think it steered me well. We weren't very strict. They wanted what they wanted, and you had to abide by that. And I think it was easy for us because we did what they wanted to as well. But, you know, Martin, I can tell you, I've got two sisters. The oldest and the youngest are sisters, and I have two brothers. And so the three boys were in the middle. And I learned quickly that if my brothers were running, I better run too, because Daddy's catching whoever's slowest.
Yeah. Sort of like the gazelle in the line, huh? You just have to be faster than the slowest gazelle.
That's it.
And you'll be all right.
That's it.
But, you know, and I want to say for the cameras, and I mentioned to you when you were sitting down to do the show, that Beryl, we have to do a one-on-one with you, I promise you, because I'm sitting there thinking of, you know, you think of people in families that have their own direction, but you're chairman of the council, she's a state rep.
Former chairman of the council.
Former chairman of the council, right. That's unique, but what's that like in the household when you're talking politics?
On most things, we agree. But just like any husband and wife, even with politics, there are some things that we believe should go a different way. And I'm sure I irritate her because I press, you need to do this, you need to do that. And she's a little bit different. She leaves me alone because she knows in the end I'll do the right thing. I guess I get a little more engaged at home than I do in the public. I always preach to people that when you're dealing in the political arena, you have to set emotions aside and you have to look at what's in front of you and the facts and how it's going to affect the people. And even though it may not be something that I totally agree with, I have to look at the big picture. So at home, when we talk politics, most of the time it's just preaching to the choir. So it's mostly just strategizing, talking with one another, bouncing ideas off of each other to deal with the matters that we're having to deal with.
What have you learned from the council? Because like I said, you paid your dues. It's not that you were just elected and all of a sudden, oh, John will be the chairman. You paid your dues. You've been through the political arena. To me, you're a perfect fit. What did that all teach you through the process?
Many things. One, of course, is to be slow to speak. Hear both sides. Get a clear picture of what you're dealing with. Try and keep emotion out of it, because I think that you get more agreement with people when you're not ranting and raving over things. There are times where I may be even keeled, but I will be firm. There are several that I try not to do things just like in my personal life or working in business. Do things out in public. I try to keep things, if it's an issue between me and an individual, I try to get behind closed doors and sit down and work those things out. I don't believe it's a good look to air all this out in public. So a lot of times, people say, well, y'all are doing backroom deals. And it's like, no, we're beating each other up back there, trying to get to a point of agreement so that when we come out, we can present a unified front. I say, I don't think people would like to see that, but some people do. Just
You're right.
look at the reality TV shows, and I think they would love it. And I try my best to not be fodder for that whole group.
Yeah, some people are just in the drama.
They
They're
are.
born with it. It's never gonna leave them.
There's a term that I picked up from somebody, I forget where, but called political theater. Sometimes people just are out there trying to draw attention for political theater to get their 10, 15 minutes of fame. I don't need that. I'm a type of person that my dad instilled in me, my mom instilled in me. You just do what you have to do, get it done, the rewards will follow. Mm-hmm. And over the years, I've always tried to practice that in any of the organizations I've been a part of. Just get there and do what I have to do and let the accolades come as they come.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
I've been around when the console was much bigger, like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I was actually behind the camera, and I was going, man, this meeting will never end. I mean, and especially when we just started televising the meetings, the conversation got longer. Then, finally figured out how to keep it short, even on TV. When we went to 9-member, for the longest part, there's this misconception that it's always been 5-4, 5-4, 5-4.
Right.
But that hasn't always been true. And I know you're trying to change it to where do what's best for your district, speak your heart, do your thing. Sure, there'll be some 5-4 votes, but there may be 7-2. There may be, so it could be a lot different under your regime.
Everybody, has to represent their district as well as Terrebonne Parish. So they're going to have some opportunities or some situations where someone, will come up and say, look, guys, I just can't support that because of my district. And that's understandable. We're elected by the people to represent the people. And even though we feel it should go a certain way, we still have to represent the people. Now, with that said, we represent the people, but we also have more information than the people have. So when we make decisions, like people were, for example, the firm maps, the FEMA flood maps, they were like, why are y'all doing that? Well, yes, it affects you as an individual, but we can't shut the economy of Terrebonne Parish down by not approving them. We're going to approve them, and then we're going to fight, and we are fighting. And perhaps in another show on the council, we can talk about where we are in that process.
And that is a perfect example of having to do something that the public doesn't understand, but live for another day.
Exactly.
You have to do it.
We tell people that all the time, and I want to just, tell the public, when we have meetings, we don't have the whole council because we would violate public meeting
Correct.
laws. So we do it so that we don't break the quorum rules that ethics has put out on us. So it's not like we're all back there. So, and one of the things I want to do this year as council is have more communication with the council and have more meetings like that where I can bring in 3 people at a time and not violate quorum rules, and then mix them up, because I believe that it's important to sit face to face with people where they may say something that you didn't think about because you learn different than they do, or you have different experiences than they've had. And by being able to get all that expression out, it could change my mind. I may not have thought of something that they're thinking about, And I always tell people, I said, look, I'm firm on my decisions. When I'm there, I'm there. But if you present me good information, you can change my mind.
Yeah, because if you went the same clique all the time, you're going to think like the clique.
And you know, Martin, we were talking about Beryl, and I would tease her sometimes. It's like, get out of your bubble, because you tend to be in a clique in a certain bubble of events and what's happening. Sometimes you have to take a step back and see what else is going on, and then put that in. And we do that. We try to have a very diverse group of friends and people that we look to for information and guidance and things that we do.
I go back to the days when the council was rip-roared. But I've seen changes in the council over the years. A lot of people think, and yeah, the parish president does have a lot of power in Terrebonne Parish. But cumulatively, the council has a lot of power also because the whole parish put everybody in districts.
Right.
So it's a checks and balances, isn't it?
It's absolutely, and that's how government should be. We should always have our checks and balances. So he can check us and we can check him in the things that need to be done. You have different personalities and you work within those personalities. That's why you see the roller coaster of, contentiousness and then peace and calm. My goal is always to bring people together, keep everything calm. We're not going to all walk out of the room 100% happy, but if we can walk out with a smile on our face, shaking hands, and go have a steak dinner or something, then I think we've accomplished a lot.
I go back and I always allude to this. I saw the days of Alan Bonvillain, Donald Landry, and all those, and I was a young man. I would go, they don't like each other when they would argue with people, and then I'd go get a bite to eat after, and they all sitting in the same restaurant,
Right.
laughing and cutting up, and I'm going, I'm confused. Well, that's probably the way it ought to be.
Yeah. And
Fight your battle and be friends after.
Right. I grew up watching professional wrestling. My parent was in, his son and all were involved in it in Baton Rouge. And the funny thing was you'd see them just after each other on TV. And then my parent had a camp on Lake Verret. And they would come for the weekend sometimes, and they're all buddies. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I realized, okay, they got me.
A lot of it is political theater sometimes, because let's face it, everybody wants their constituents to know that they're getting
Right.
fought on their behalf.
Yeah.
But they also want production. And I think you're a production person.
Right. That's what I believe for myself personally, is that if things in the district stack up, they can see that things are being done, then that's all I need to do. That's my whole goal, is to let them see by, what I've done. So we've got some things in the Schriever and Gray areas that we've been working on. I got elected 4 years ago, and we're still working to get some of those things accomplished. But a lot of safety measures, and the people recognize it. While you have those squeaky wheels that like to complain all the time, the ones who see what's being done defend me. I don't have to defend myself.
Right.
And that's what I always say. Just by my actions, let me be judged. And that's my purpose that I carry throughout personal life, work life, and now council life.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.